research project is focused on translanguaging, in which simultaneous bilingualism is part of the development of an English class, in which the principle of translanguaging is the main characteristic in the indication of and solution of activities in an English classroom.
In the development of the activities, the participants were 3 9-year-olds who attended the same English class.
By their behavior and their results on the various activities and the answers given in the interviews, we expect to determine in our experiences what does a translanguaging didactic strategy produce in a 9-year-old student, and if the use of it does improve the process of learning English.
What does a translanguaging didactic strategy produce in a 9-year-old student?
Research objective. Show how the use of both English and Spanish in the class can improve the learning of the English language. Cummings thinks that bilingual education is the use of 2 or more languages of instruction at some point in a student's school career. Now, according to Bermúdez Jiménez and Fandiño Parra, professors from La Salle University, the simultaneous bilingualism indicates that the 2 languages were learned during the same time frame, that is, learning occurs parallel. We think that although the children start learning Spanish first as their L1, actually they are also continue learning Spanish at the same time that they are learning English as their L2. Garcia describes translanguaging as the usual and normal practice of bilingualism without diglossic functional separation. That is, the common and normal use that a person makes of their linguistic repertoire without taking into account socially and politically defined linguistic levels or limits. Lynn and Martin and Arthur and Martin mention some important pedagogical factors for which it is necessary to implement the principle of translanguaging in education. These are increasing the inclusion, participation, and understandings of pupils in the learning process, developing less formal relationship between participants, conveying ideas more easily, and accomplishing lessons. In this sense, translanguaging focuses on enhancing communication, in this case of language learning, but not in the language itself.
Our didactic strategy consisted of familiar English materials that came from the actual English books. The first action was to use prescripted or pre-stated keywords that they had to use to make a glossary. With this, we had to develop a predicting activity in which they gave ideas of what they thought their reading was going to be about. Then we proceed to do their reading in English and then in Spanish. This for us to make sure that all the information was going to be clear and everything was going to be understood for the solving of the workshops. Then we do workshops from the reading. In these workshops, we found 4 multiple choice questions for checking, plus 2 critical thinking questions with reading answers only. Using the keywords that they had seen through all the activities, they had to make a poster. And we did a one-on-one interview with each one of the known subjects. For data recollection and student artifacts consisted on participant observation made by us, teacher researchers, workshops. From the reading, in the workshops we find 4 multiple choice questions for checking plus 2 critical thinking questions with reading answers only. Posters made by the students using the keywords that they had seen through all the activities. And one-on-one interviews.
¿Qué tanto español usan en sus clases de inglés? O sea, ustedes usan español en sus clases de inglés, ¿sí? Listo. Entonces, ¿qué tanto español usan?
A mí, yo digo que usamos el 50% inglés y el 50% español.
Vale. Martín.
También 50. Siento que usamos el 80% en inglés y de resto en español.
Listo. Findings.
First, it was a little difficult to adequate an activity because our noun subjects were kids who are accustomed to the traditional model of learning English. Second, the 3 kids perceive Spanish as a tool to learn English. This shows that children can feel more comfortable in an English class when there is also use of Spanish to understand certain things. Third, our noun subjects felt better in a different context than the traditional one. Fourth, kids perceive the value of English in this decade and the relevance that it has in terms of having a good future. Fifth, Valeria seemed to be the most shy and insecure in terms of speak on English or develop any activities. Maybe it is because she feels that she have to be at the same level than her classmates, and it may generate a kind of fear.
Despite the objective of the class is to learn the target language, which is English, they also learn vocabulary in Spanish and improve their writing and communication skills in Spanish. For example, they and us learn from these activities a more specific vocabulary in both English and Spanish.
Based on the interviews, we can find that the use of Spanish is not strange in the classroom. It helps children understand better the indication, as well as being able to express their ideas and concerns to the teacher. They find themselves more comfortable having the opportunity to use Spanish without disregarding the importance of the English language. When it comes to their English knowledge, they find themselves in a good position where it's not that difficult for them to resolve the different activities. It shows just how far they can go within their progress in learning the English language. Based on the development of the activities and Valeria's answer to the use of Spanish in the classroom, we can confirm how attitude plays such an important part in what it feels to learn a different language. Son says attitude consists on 3 parts: cognitive part, emotional part, and the part of cognition. Attitude seems to be the phantom mental state, but in SLA, it is the tendency of learners' cognition, emotion, and action in learning target language. So attitude really plays an important part in SLA. This shows why Valeria's point of view when it comes to the use of first language in difference with her classmates is caused by the attitude that they had formed with the language. When it comes to using a bigger amount of Spanish in the English classroom, these children have been taught that is an obstacle in their English learning. However, they feel better when there is more Spanish talking during the lessons. This confirms the many statements where Creese points out that the use of Spanish in the classroom makes students more comfortable when learning a new language and improves their participation in the class.
We decide to use this scheme based on the input and output information to illustrate the development that children had throughout the activities. The first step is input and is the material in English, like readings and workshops. The second step is processing, the processing that children do from reading and keywords as tools to answer the questions of the workshops. This is usually in Spanish, but that depends on how each child feels more comfortable. The third step is output. The result is the children's responses in English. And the fourth step is feedback. The children explain their answers in Spanish, as this gives them more freedom to express their ideas and so that other participants can fully understand what the child wants to explain.
Conclusions.
As seen first, even though the classes in the pre-writing curriculum are laid to be monolingual, it is pretty common for schools and English teachers to use Spanish in elementary school. This pudding is in a reasonable level when we point out the circumstances of the students, such as their level of English, their age, the length of time they have been learning English, and many other factors that not only validate the use of English, but assert the logic of its presence in the classroom.
Now, when it comes to translanguaging, only the spoken part of it comes to the classroom, in the position of the teacher and the students. Other than that, it's very rare to find materials with Spanish in the English classroom. Elements such as books are full written in English and their listening CDs are as well. In the circumstances in which Spanish takes place are usually in posters hanging around the classroom, in most cases are only directed to children, sparing the use of translanguaging from upper ages.
It was a little difficult to adequate an activity because our noun subjects were kids who are accustomed to the traditional model of learning English, and also they usually have a very formal connection with their teacher, which is different in the perception established by translanguaging. We believe it is important to implement the translanguaging in the classrooms because it provides greater comfort on the part of the students when expressing their ideas, and therefore making them feel more comfortable with the learning of the second language, in this case English. Also, that the student makes the process of carrying out the activities mixing the two languages means that they is processing the subject to study. Therefore, the student is understanding more and fulfilling the objective of the class. Besides, it's important to remark the role of English today and how children perceive that phenomenon in terms of know about different cultures, acquire new languages from English as a mainstream language, and even with the purpose of reach lower goals.